Hello, I'm 𝗏𝗲𝗀𝗃 and welcome to Grinding My Gears, where Evermore Digital invite market professionals to nominate their most grating things about the insurance industry to be burnt to a crisp in our furnace of digital pretense. Joining us from that furnace, she's collected more awards than I've had hot dinners. It's Charlotte Halkett of Bought by Many. Because two Eds are better than one, it's Ed Gaze from the Lloyd's Lab. He's been doing InsurTech so long, it's retro. We have Andre Symes of Genesis UK. And my guest host today is a former 𝗚𝗏𝗂𝗃 CIO turned empire building consultant extraordinaire. Hot off of the exciting relaunch of the extraordinary Camelot network, it's the Arthurian David Clamp. And so we will kick off. What is grinding Charlotte Halkett's gears?
Hello, great to be here. Okay, stay with me. I'm going to tell you a bit of a story. In 2003, there's this movie called Love Actually, right? We watch it every single Christmas. It's all about love, supposedly. I don't see it like that. If you watch that movie, actually, it's all about people finding the latest shiny thing. It's all about new relationships, and old relationships tend to get ignored. So I don't want to talk about Love Actually. I want to talk about Love Actuary. I'm an actuary, and one of the things, actuaries are lovely people, right, generally, but dual pricing. What have we made? What is this monster in which we take our loyal customers and we penalize them? We create something that nobody's happy about. We're all running so hard to get new customers. We forget about our loyal customers and what we can do with them. So dual pricing is all about charging more for your loyal customers than new business. And that's why I want to cast it in the pit of hell. We run really fast, but it's a big waste of time. We work really hard to find that perfect elasticity of demand. How far can I stretch you away from that pain point until you crack and go somewhere else? And how can I take all of that money and pass it to my new business customers? In reality, it's the vulnerable customers, it's those who are less financially savvy or those who have less time, those who are busy, who really suffer by this. But it's also us. It's us as an insurance market too, because we pour so much effort into ever smarter and smarter models in order to try and really rinse that old existing book and get more and more new customers that we lose sight of the wood for the trees. Now, Bought by Many, we've never done dual pricing. So Bought by Many, if you don't know us, we're a pet InsurTech. Really successful. We're approaching in on 300,000 new pets since we've been writing pet insurance in the last just over 4 years. We've never done dual pricing. We've always said that our new customers, our existing customers pay the same amount. So it works. It absolutely works. You can do it. You concentrate on making your customers have a fantastic experience, making them love you. And then if you keep those new customers and you keep what you have, you're not always chasing the latest shiny thing. You can look at what you've got. I mean, to add to all the reasons why I hate dual pricing, I'd also add that as an insurance market, we do all we can to keep customers in a negative way. So there's whether it's making NCD hard to port, or whether it's about pre-existing conditions and that being hard to port, or putting in waiting periods for insurance. We really find ways to try and lock in customers. But then we try and charge them more to stay. I mean, this is just mad. This isn't who we want to be, right? This is a horrible practice. It's not where we want to be. I think we should shift as insurance. It's going to be a big psychological and cultural fit, but it can work.
What a great start that is. I'm actually a Bought by Many customer, Charlotte, and I have to say, you're absolutely right. You don't dual price. I was very happy to see the pricing that I got on it, and it's a very good insurance policy, so I'd urge you to go out and have a look. But any other thoughts from anybody else? David, as the co-host, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I thought it was a good start. Good start. I had high expectations for later on, but it was a good start. I think from my perspective, Love Actually, Love Actuary.
I loved that.
As actuaries, we don't have many jokes. We've got to make most of the ones we've got. You see, you've got to make the most of what you've got, which is why you should look after your existing customers and not always chase the new ones.
Great start. My perspective is why do insurers do it then?
Because you make more money. Basically, you can make more money if you really look at those segments and you say, okay, this particular segment, is the sort of customer that I know they're just not going to have time to shop around, or they're going to find it confusing to shop around, I can charge them more, because they've got that elasticity to their price. That means they're much more likely not to shop around. So you know what? I'll put more money on them, and I'll take that somewhere else. It's not a practice to be proud of. And then it does make it harder, right? So if your competition's doing it, that means they're always reducing prices for new business, and they're subsidizing that with their existing book. So it makes it much harder for new entrants. It makes it much harder to grow. It makes it much harder to do something different. But Bought by Many's done it, and we've done it by having a complete cultural shift. We decided we are not going to do this. This is a red line. We're going to find other ways in order to be financially successful as a business. And we do that around the word love. So we do it around the fact that NPS has to be over 70 across all touch points. We're going to be the most trusted UK insurance provider, which we have been. We're always going to go for what our customers love, not what the industry loves. So it's a really different way of approaching things, and it does mean that you have to be different across the whole piece. It's very different if your different departments are really separate to each other. So if pricing is sitting over there on its own, just maximizing profit, it's going to come up with solutions which are suboptimal across your whole business. And that means that culturally, you have to set those boundaries right at the top and say, this is who we want to be. Customer is king. Customer is at the top. We want our customers to love us. And that means all those different departments, including pricing, know what they have to do.
And I think the other problem I always see with dual pricing is that people are already quite distrustful of insurers. They don't necessarily trust the insurance industry as much as we'd like them to. And things like dual pricing really don't help with that. When you see that you can get a better deal if you come in as a new customer, it doesn't help with that feeling of being protected and having your best interests looked out for. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I mean, insurance is a superhero business, right? The point of insurance, the reason why we're all here, is to swoop in and help people when they're really, really struggling. And dual pricing is totally the opposite of that. We're saying, right, like some evil villain with a white cat stroking, going, what's the vulnerability of these customers here? Oh, that person, oh, that Eddie's a bit busy. He's running around. He's too worried about, like his kids' schoolwork. Let's see if we can squeeze an extra couple of quid off him. I mean, it's a really terrible practice, isn't it? And another wonderful thing about insurance is that we're all customers. We're all customers in some way or another. So we know this. We'd hate to have it done to ourselves. So it's not that complicated to think that it's not a good thing to do to your customers in your business. I mean, the FCA is picking up on this, as we know. So the FCA has currently got consultation out for motor and home. So two lines of business. I would love it, and I know Bought by Many would love it, if that was a wide sweeping review that went across all lines of business. And we call for actually the industry to sort of stand up and, before the regulator tells you, you know what, this is so bad, you have to stop it, just realize that yourself. Insurance is always saying that it's got a trust problem and, oh dear, why is it that people don't like us? Well, there's some fairly obvious reasons, and dual pricing is one of them.
Well, thank you very much. I think it is very clear that Charlotte has come to win. She has come out swinging on that first one. This is...
Ed, compelling, but is it compelling enough?
Wow. Let's find out as we move on to person number 2 and find out what their argument is. And that is Ed Gaze of the Lloyd Labs. Ed, talk to me. What is grinding your gears?
So what grinds my gears is all this talk of the end of the underwriting room. Now, running the Lloyd's Lab, you'd imagine that my point of view is that everything should be digital and tech, and we don't need to see each other face to face. But actually, it's kind of like a really important part of it, I believe. And so since lockdown happened, there's been so much talk of on conferences, in meetings I've had with people about, is this the end of the underwriting room? And I really don't think it should be. And I think it's a missed opportunity to talk of it as the end of the underwriting room, because I think actually we should be thinking about what the underwriting room should be. And for those who don't understand what the underwriting room is, it's kind of like the centre of Lloyd's of London. It's where underwriters go and sit in a box, and brokers come in and discuss business and do deals. And clearly, there's not many people in the underwriting room right now, and there's not going to be for the foreseeable. And business is still happening. And I'm the first to celebrate the fact that the market has embraced technology enough to keep things going while we've been working at home. That was unthinkable a year ago. If you'd have said that to somebody in the market, they would have laughed you out of the room. But I think as we kind of get past the pandemic, I think we really need to think about what the future of the underwriting room will be. And we need to take its strengths and build on those rather than just kind of think of this thing as being an archaic way of working. I think that's missing so much. Doesn't mean I think we should go back to working exactly as we were. I don't. But I think that the underwriting room is it's the envy of the other insurance markets. Nobody else has a place to do business like Lloyd's does in the underwriting room. And I think we should start thinking about the benefits it brings and how we can capitalize on those in the future. So, for example, imagine a room where you go in and rather than just being underwriters and brokers, have customers in, have kind of collaboration areas. So you don't just go there to discuss one deal and, you know, one person to one person, have areas where you can go and whiteboard stuff, come up with ideas and solutions with perhaps multiple different underwriters all together. Because at the end of the day, it's a syndicated market and you don't just do business with between one broker and one underwriter. It's many to many. And so I think we should be taking the benefits of the underwriting room and seeing how we can build on those and get rid of some of the archaic stuff. So, you know, having a broker sat at a stool next to a broker at a stool with an underwriter in the box kind of feels like this power play that isn't necessary. But there are other aspects of it that the face-to-face brings that we wouldn't get otherwise.
I think it's sad as well to see some of the kind of tradition. I know I fell in love with insurance. I was just working in insurance up to a very clear point for me. And that was one of my old employers kindly arranged me to have a tour of Lloyd's. And that was the moment that I really fell in love with insurance. And I realized how massive it was and how traditional it was. And there was that's really nice. Having an industry that's got traditions is really, really nice. And that was the moment that I fell in love, and that was the moment that I thought this is an industry that I want to be part of. But there are other viewpoints on it. So everyone else, what are your thoughts on it?
So one of the big problems with insurance, right, is that it just looks to itself. So and insurance is incredibly, how can I put it nicely, homogenous, right? So I would like to know who's actually in that room. So which of your customers are in that room, which countries, and especially what's your diversity like in that room?
The room historically had a big challenge with diversity. You know, women weren't allowed in until probably around the 70s. I mean, that's changed a lot, but I don't think that's the problem of the room. You know, there's a lot more going on at Lloyd's to try and resolve diversity, rightly so. But I think the people in the room and the way the room operates, I think is a bit of a different thing to consider.
Have you got customers in your room?
No, we don't have customers, and that's I think a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Rather than saying this is an archaic way of working, having a room face to face, we should all be working remotely. I think we should be face to face, but we should be doing it in a different way. We should be bringing customers in. I think that would be a great step.
Sorry, sorry, Charlotte. I don't want to interrupt you.
I just say you can't bring customers in. You've got to go to them. That's crazy. This is 2020, right? You don't bring people to London. You go to your customers.
Indeed. So Ed, just in terms of what grinds your gears, then is talk of the end of the underwriting room. Yes,
which is probably not what you'd expect from somebody that runs an innovation lab. You probably think it'd be the opposite, but it's actually I think it's a wasted opportunity, and we should be thinking about the future in a more positive way.
Because it actually sounds like what you're saying about bringing customers in, and whiteboards, different way of working, etc., is actually kind of changing the underwriting room.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the end of the underwriting room as we know it.
At the end as the current way of working, yeah, I'd say so. But having that place still to come to and have the face-to-face and collaborate more, use it as a place to collaborate.
Interesting.
It's perhaps the evolution. You want to see the evolution of the underwriting room.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And the end. It's the evolution.
Nice. Right. Well, thank you very much. We are now going to move on to our third panelist today, Andre. Andre, what is it that's grinding your gears to be cast into the depths of hell forever?
Thanks, Ed and David, for having me today. Well, I think my co-panelists make some really, really good cases for some things that need to be thrown away. I think what grinds my gears will address both of their points, and that is just people that stifle change for various reasons. Everybody in this room agrees that insurance needs to change, but we just don't seem to be changing at the rate that we need to change. And I've been thinking about it for a little bit as to why this is, and I've kind of categorized these stiflers of change into three different areas, and that's the self-preservationists. And I think, Charlotte, you were touching on that a little bit when it came to the dual pricing. We know this is a challenge. We know that the FCA is looking at this, but no one's really doing anything about this until they are forced to do it by the FCA. Now, I've had conversations with various motor insurers that you mentioned, that motor and home are the first ones being looked at, and they are all indicating that they want to change. But no one is willing to take that first step, right? No one is willing to go, I'm going to be the first one that jumps off of an aggregation site, or I'm going to be the first one that makes this big change that is going to shift how we price that. And that is because the short-term benefits aren't always that obvious, right? And you look at something like, the curve of fastest descent. The fastest way to get from point A to point B isn't always a straight line. Taking a step back and then potentially beating your competitors out is that. But who is going to make that big decision? Who is going to fire IBM ultimately to do that? And again, so it's people that are putting themselves ahead of their business. And the second category that I thought was quite interesting is what we refer to as the hippos, right? The highest paid person's opinions on making these decisions. And Ed, I think that potentially goes a little bit to some of the work from home stuff, is that data has shown for a very long time that working from home in a big portion of what it is we do makes a lot of sense. A lot of the data that we see now post this lockdown is that people want to work from home, people want to work remotely. And I mean, the information that's coming out shows that your resource pools increase, etc. However, you are right. There still needs to be an element of what actually happens when people are in the room. But the point being is that opinions shouldn't be used to make the decisions. Data should be used to form the opinions, not opinions used to dispel data. And I think that is quite often an ego thing where people go, I just know better. I've been in this industry for 40 years. I'm not going to listen to my customers or what they want because I know best. And what grinds my gears is that listen to the customers. And often when we say this, people like to throw this Henry Ford quote back that's saying, where he went, I think it was along the lines of, if I listened to my customers, I would have given them foster horses. But yeah, look, then you weren't listening to your customers because they weren't asking for foster horses. They were asking for foster transportation. And what the solution of that is potentially InsurTech or whatever. But the point being is that, again, I think that people are potentially putting egos ahead of what the data actually says. We need to understand that. And then the third category, and this is probably the more controversial one, is that I think that a lot of what stifles our change is distraction, is this perpetual distraction that we have. And we're currently coming out, I believe, of a bit of a hype cycle when it comes to the hashtag InsurTech particular brand. We've been saying this for quite some time, that the hashtag itself is a little bit of a distraction. But it's always like, what is the next big hype? We need to do X, Y, and Z that the futurists tell us to do to make change to our businesses today. When I landed in London 2 years ago as a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, knocking on doors, trying to start a business here, I sat in front of a C-level, and he said to me, right, Andre, I really appreciate your massive customer base and that you've done well in South Africa and you've got this really good business, but what are you doing about cryptocurrency? And I was like, well, why are you asking me that question? And he said that because my kid is into it. And I was like, okay, so we've got an opportunity to transform your business digitally, and you are concerned about this little microcosm of cryptocurrency as crypto payments. And it just shows you how hype can distract from us. And I suppose that gets to where the controversial part comes in, is that we've almost created the subculture of people that just tell us what we need to do with insurance the whole time, as if it's some sort of magic, or what you call as a future-looking 8 balls, that what is going to happen? Is it going to be RPA? Is it going to be AI? Is it going to be DLT? Every year we hear something new. And it feels like we are chasing this laser pointer. We are all these cats in this insurance industry chasing this laser pointer. And the problem with chasing a laser pointer is you can never catch it. That's the point of the laser pointer. We can all actually just take a step back, catch a mouse, make a real change. And you can see that in businesses like 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏, where they've made a change, they've made a success. They haven't just spoken about it. And you can see it in Lloyd's lab too. They actually take the businesses and deploy them in other businesses and make the change, not just talking about what is the next big hype cycle.
That is a strong one, David. You look to have an opinion on that one.
I thought it's really, really good, very impassioned, very impassioned. I'm looking for the substance behind it as well, though. And 3 areas there you've highlighted. Oh, it's really, really good. But I'm just kind of thinking, well, that's what we shouldn't do. We shouldn't have people who stifle change. I was looking perhaps a bit more for what we should be doing. What is the thing we should be doing then?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, David. And so on the self-preservationist side, we need to stop having businesses that incentivize the 3.7 average year of a sea level. That's an average tenure of a sea level, 3.7 years in the UK. And change is not encouraged. It is punished if it isn't successful. We need to learn to fail fast, and we need to set up corporate structures that actually allow for this. On the hippo side, where we need to start absorbing data, we need to start making our decisions based upon data, not upon historical opinion. Our markets are changing. We need to understand the markets better. As Charlotte said earlier, get in front of the customers, understand what they want, use that information to make your decisions. And then on the distractors, so we need to understand that while we have to have futurists in place, and we have to have people that brand themselves influencers, and we have to have all of these things, we need to also understand that that is their role, is to talk about what is the art of the possible, not just what do we need to change today or tomorrow. I hope that answers your question, David.
It does, and ironically, I've been in exec meetings where we've taken years to sort of prepare the data and get it presented nicely, and absolutely a really compelling case for a senior executive to then say, I'm not going to let this data get in the way of my opinion. My opinion is my opinion.
I think we're being maybe a little bit unfair on insurance here, though, because before I joined to run the Lloyd's Lab, I was a consultant and worked across retail, consumer goods, government, etc. And this is it's just everywhere. These kind of problems. They're definitely challenges. I think it's unfair to say it's just an insurance problem.
No, absolutely. And I agree with you. I don't think it's just an insurance problem. But if you look at the rate of change of the markets around us in insurance, and look, I've been in insurance for 10 years. I kind of got in here by accident. I wasn't attracted by the business, and I'm happy that I'm here. It's really cool once you're excited. But if you look at the rate of change in the retail space, looking at all the online retail companies, Facebook, Amazon, etc., all the FANGs, and then you look at something like the banking space, which is 10 years ahead of us. We definitely do have a problem that we don't feel like we need to change fast enough because it's just currently too profitable not to change. And sooner or later, this profit delta is going to drop. And in all of these big companies that do have customer engagements, that do speak to their customers many hundreds of times a day through tablets and through your interactions online, they're going to go, that's an attractive market. Let's go see what that looks like.
So I'm going to find it hard to say that I don't think there should be change in insurance, but I think one reason why it would be hard to throw yours away is, I suppose, a bit David's point, like it's so big that to throw it all away, what would you have? And again, to stand up for insurance a little bit, insurance has to be here to pay for the big disasters, right? It has to be here to pay for the earthquakes. It has to be here to pay for the pandemics. It has to be here. It has to survive everything. So I think naturally there is a sense of a little bit more either caution or looking more at what you've got and thinking about the strengths that you need as well to go through that. So if all your best people were all just considering change in insurance, I think you'd have a really big problem when you had the 1 in 10-year event, the 1 in 20-year event, the 1 in 50-year event. So I think if you're going to throw that away, you need to put something in place straight away which is strong enough to survive the next major global disaster. And I think that's a really big thing. And I don't think it's I think we haven't quite got there as insurance to say what that is. I think InsurTech comes along. So people like me, I regularly get asked, oh, what is it that the incumbents should change? And I just shake my head and say, I don't know. I've spent the last 12 years building InsurTech for that reason, that I find it easier to build something different with a different purpose than change the incredibly complicated strength and depth of the existing reinsurance markets that have been here for a very long time.
Well, interesting perspective, but it's my role to diss Andre. So Andre, insurance, it's successful. Why, why should we stifle all this change? Change is happening. People are, it's happening, and insurance is successful globally.
Look, absolutely, David, and I agree with that point. And I agree with your point too, Charlotte, is that I don't think that we should be throwing away what we have just for the sake of change. That I think that's half of my point when it comes to the distractors, that let's not change for the sake of change. Let's not use tech for the sake of using tech. We have to use these things to make some real fundamental and some good changes to the industry. I think what grinds my gears is that I still see that there are too many people that are preventing it based upon their personal positions. As David rightly put, this is a really good plan supported by your data. The data shows that we have to prepare for the 1 in 10 year, 1 in 20 year events, etc., etc., etc. But my client base is busy changing quite drastically because we now got the Gen Zs and etc. coming in now. They've got different buying behaviors, and I know you'll understand that much better than what I do. But the point is that I still think that in our case, I think we're potentially looking at data more than opinions. But I still feel what grinds my gears is that there's still too many individuals that don't need to change because they are comfortable where they are.
A friend of mine in one of the leading insurance companies, he sometimes talks about BPOs. Do you have a BPO in your organisation? BPO, Business Prevention Officer. Someone who prevents things from happening. You don't want BPOs.
I also think Andre needs some extra points as well for the thematic shirt that he's worn for this Grinding My Gears show. I think I'm going to give you some bonus points for that one, Andre. But thank you everyone for your to our panel for their 3 suggestions for being cast into the depths of hell forever. We have Charlotte with dual pricing. Ed has offered up the death of the room, and Andre has offered we're going to call it stiflers of change. So over to you, David, to summarize and let us know who you think had the most compelling argument for what should be cast into the depths of hell. What is grinding your gears?
Thank you, Ed. And yes, all very compelling. Were they compelling enough? So Charlotte, thank you very much for your expose about taking us back to 2003, Love Actually, and change that into Love Actually, however you said it. Love that, and thinking about kind of loyal customers. Let's not treat them well. Let's actually penalise them, penalising those loyal customers by charging less to new customers. Customers suffer. You said insurers suffer. Loved your explanation of how Bought by Many has taken a different cultural ethos shift, and it's about the whole company, not just the pricing team. Where these, that is needed. So it's maximizing profit versus the culture of putting the customer first. Love that. And the kind of icing on the cake there was before the regulator tells us to. There's something in that. So Charlotte, thank you for that. Interesting, compelling, maybe. Ed, thank you very much for your description of why you're really fed up with hearing about the end of the underwriting room. You said it shouldn't be that, it should evolve. Centre of the Lloyd's of London, the box, the deals, and it's the envy of the insurance markets throughout the world. But the evolution was very good, very important. Whiteboards, bringing customers in there, getting it much more modern. Love that. To build on this tradition and heritage, but to make it much more relevant for the future. So not the end, but the start of the evolution. So love that. Compelling? Is it compelling enough? Andre, lastly for you, people who stifle change. Love the 3 categories. Nice bit of structure. Self-preservationists, 3.7 years average tenure at exec role. People look after themselves and thinking about where they're going to retire to rather than changing the industry. Who takes the first step? Good challenge. Hippos, hadn't heard hippos analogy for a while. The highest paid person's opinion. I'm not going to let data get in the way of a good, my own opinion. Love that. And definitely we don't want egos ahead of data in what the data's saying. And the distraction, I didn't listen to this because I was just listening to that. No, the distraction. What's the next big hype? Trying to follow the laser pointer or chasing the rainbow, cryptocurrency, RPA, AI, DLT. But you did actually transfer into actually what we should do in terms of fail fast, art of the possible, and we are successful is about being more successful. So all three, very, very compelling. Obviously, I would normally say it's very difficult, but actually on this occasion, I think what really, am I convinced about something? Yes, I am. What really grinds my gears? There's one thing that really grinds my gears, because everything we've said here is interesting, but actually, if customers suffer, that's not good. That can only come around and bite us. So what I'd really cast into the depths of hell, and what really grinds my gears, Charlotte, dual pricing. Now, that really does grind my gears.
Get rid of it. Get rid of it.
Congratulations, Charlotte. Well, sadly, that brings us to the end of the show. Well done, Charlotte. You are today's winner and our most persuasive guest. There will be some kind of crazy animation going on right now where we're burning dual pricing in the background. Hopefully you can see that. Thank you to Charlotte. Thank you to Ed. And thank you to Andre for their suggestions. Thank you to David for pulling the sword from the stone for us here today. And thank you to you for watching. We'll see you on the next one.